Hey guys, it's March 5th and it's time for book chat. Real quick, I want to just wrap up last month's chat, which was on negative reviews and the relationship between authors and reviewers or bloggers or vloggers or whatever. There was a lot of great feedback and a lot of people got involved in the discussion, which was great, so thank you guys for that. I'm going to post a link below to everyone's responses and posts so that you can check those out and see what everyone had to say. But for the most part, you guys were all really articulate. You brought up a lot of great points. Everyone looked at it from their own unique perspective. So there were a lot of angles that I think all of us hadn't considered, and just some really great anecdotes and thoughts put into it, and you guys just did a great job. So yay for that. So this month's topic is going to be buzzwords and deal breakers. So those things that when someone describes a book to you or when you're reading a book either make you really jazzed and know you have to read that book, or make you put it on the I'm not even touching that with a 10-foot pole pile. I know we all have our little quirks, and sometimes it's because of a bad experience we've had with another book or a great experience that we've had that we didn't expect to, that make us kind of search out these keywords or these common tropes to different books and make us reach these snap judgments. And most of the time they don't do anything other than help us talk ourselves into our own rightness and opinions. But for whatever reason, we all have those things that we either love or we hate, and we'll make our judgments based on that, whether it's fair or not. So I'm going to start with the positive. For me, there are certain buzzwords that definitely pique my interest and make me want to read a book. And a lot of them are kind of weird, silly ones. It goes beyond just genre, just, you know, hey, it's contemporary, or hey, it's paranormal romance, or whatever, but into the really minute descriptors. You know, I know people that will read anything set in a boarding school, so it's one of those little weird quirks that we have, I guess, as readers, or just as humans. For me, some that always stand out, dystopia, obviously, if you want to go like the broader genre aspects, but even down to simple little things, like when I hear the word orphan, when I hear books about orphans, for whatever reason, I'm like, oh, I want to read that. And I guess maybe I was kind of programmed to, you know, growing up. I very, very much wanted to be Punky Brewster. And if I'm honest with myself, I think I still do. And you know, you had great characters like Annie and Pippi Longstocking and all of these great, individualistic, intelligent, adventurous orphans. It's a really common element, but not necessarily full-on orphan. Normally you have just, you know, the absent parents or kids that are somehow able to get away with whatever. So to have actual orphans in the word orphan, for whatever reason, makes me kind of sit up and take note and look into that book and decide if I want to read it. Any mythology keywords tend to pique my interest too. I've always been a huge mythology buff, and again, I think I can probably blame this on my upbringing. Of course, the obvious, you know, Hercules and Xena, I grew up on that, but even before then, my weekends were pretty much spent watching Clash of the Titans and Conan the Barbarian and Beastmaster and all of that with my dad. That was just what we did every weekend. So those pathways were laid early in my brain. So anything that kind of touches on mythology, even if it doesn't do so outright. A book's description doesn't have to mention Persephone in it. If I hear there's a main character who has to spend half of her time somewhere else, I'm like, oh wait, that's Persephone, I want to read that. So that's definitely a buzzword or a buzz topic for me. The words quirky and whimsical also often appeal to me. If I see something described as quirky or whimsical, or something about the cover seems quirky or whimsical, I'm going to look into that and see if it's something that I want to read, being a quirky and somewhat whimsical person myself. And of course anything that touches on fairy tales, as anyone knows, that's definitely going to pique my interest, even if it's just the mildest little mention of fairy tales. And randomly, and this one I really couldn't tell you why, anything that has to do with weaving or tapestry or anything like that is pretty much a guarantee to go on my to-read list. I have no idea where this one comes from. Maybe it's a holdover from fairy tales and, you know, Rumpelstiltskin and spinning the straw into gold and all of that. I really don't know. But yeah, if someone is a weaver, if the main character is a weaver, I am going to read that story. And I'm going to love it every time that they weave. I don't know how to weave. I don't know why this catches my eye and captures my heart the way it does. But it does. As I said, quirky and whimsical. So yeah, my buzzwords are a little random and a little all over the place, and there are plenty more, but those are the ones that kind of stand out to me. Now, as for my deal breakers, I'm a little lenient on the deal breakers. One of these happening in a book won't necessarily kill it for me. I won't necessarily set it down right then, but my guard will go up, and I will be on the lookout. I will be a little more critical when certain things pop into a story, and I know that about myself. I know for some of you, it's vampires or anything that's become overdone and really common. For me, I don't really care about things like that. I don't care what the meat of the story is, what type of character the main characters are, or what it revolves around. None of that's necessarily a deal breaker for me. But my biggest one is Instalove. As I have said a time or two, I am a little bit black-hearted. Just cold. A little dead inside. So when I see love at first sight, or swooning and sighing, in anything other than a somewhat mocking way, my guard goes up. At that point, from that point on, you're working a little bit harder to win me over. I want depth, I want development, It's the difference between fast food and something that's been slow cooked all day. You need that layering and that growth and that development. That one's a big kind of sets the censors going. Another is if someone mentions that something is an abrupt cliffhanger ending. Now sometimes this works, and even when I like it, it just feels gimmicky to me sometimes. It feels like you're not entirely confident that your book and your story and your writing style are enough to make me want to read the second book, so instead you've got to hook me. And I don't like anything that makes me feel like my strings are being pulled. Like, don't touch my strings. So that one's a big one. A lot of times when I hear things are cliffhangers, I will wait until they're all out. But at the same time, I love anticipation. So, it's like this weird little battle in myself. A huge pet peeve for me is little tiny mini chapters and alternating viewpoints. Now, this is one of those things that when it works, it really works and I love it. But again, like the cliffhangers, most of the time, this feels really gimmicky to me. The biggest offender, and one that I use as an example of why I hate this so very much, is The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. The chapters were like this. They were minuscule. And each one ended on a dun-dun-dun type of ending, and then it would like switch to the next perspective and the next person that was taking over the thread of the story. And it just felt so very puppeteer. It was very much slapping you in the face with, here I'm going to build up tension, and here I'm going to place a red herring, and just all of these very obvious, very over-the-top, gimmicky writing styles that were meant to, pull you along and make you feel like you couldn't put it down and you had to read the next chapter, you had to know what was going on. And I don't like when that's the reason you can't put down a book. I want to not be able to put it down because the writing is excellent, because the story is excellent, and I'm just so into it that why would I want to go to sleep? If I feel like I'm being left hanging and I'm being pulled along in the hopes that the next chapter is going to continue what just abruptly left off, I'm far more likely to not only put that book down, but just to throw it against the effing wall. So that one's a big one for me. Another one that's kind of random and isn't necessarily a deal breaker, but does definitely put me on edge, is the mean girl stereotype. I like my villains to be layered and to have a little more depth to them. And I also just am not a fan of stereotypes, and that's such an easy one to fall into, to have, a high school story or an adult story where the main character has got this clique, this pack of just absolute bitches who are vapid and shallow and razor-tongued and have nothing else going. I don't like cardboard characters on their own, but especially in an instance like this where it could be a good opportunity to develop some real tension or to even have a sort of nemesis thing going, but instead it's just the typical queen bitch of the pack nonsense that no one likes in real life, so why would I want to read about it? So yeah, I guess those are my biggest deal breakers, and most of them have to do with layering and with talent. If you have the talent to pull any one of those off, then I will forgive any gimmickiness. but most of the time I don't think it's necessary anyway. Like, why wouldn't you just take the opportunity to layer something and to make it more meaningful? So those were my buzzwords and deal breakers, and I'm definitely curious to see what yours are, because I know everybody's different and everybody has those little either super pet peeves or weird attractors that creep into our brain and control us and control our actions. So I definitely want to see what you guys are into or loathe. You have all month to respond to book chat if you would like to. You can link yours up as a video response below, or as a vlog or blog post on the linky at thebookrat.com, and I will put that below too. And of course, make sure that you hop around to everyone else's and see what they have to say and get involved in the discussion. And of course, you can just leave a comment too. If you have any topics you would like to see on book chat, make sure to let me know, because I'm always on the lookout for a good topic. And don't forget to go check out all the videos from last month's negative review topic, because it was fantastic. And that's it for this month's book chat. I will see you guys again soon. Happy reading!